Thank you both, Chairman Phillips. Thank you also, Ranking Member Van Dyne. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Scott Lockard of Hampton Enterprises to the committee today. Scott Lockard is a lifelong Nebraskan. He grew up in Stella, Nebraska, studied construction engineering in Omaha, and has worked with Hampton Enterprises, a company based in Lincoln, since 2007. Earlier in his career, Mr. Lockard worked as a project manager on the construction of Pinnacle Bank Arena, the basketball arena for the University of Nebraska Cornhuskers. Since then, Mr. Lockard has progressed quickly through the ranks within the company he works. He currently occupies the position of President of Construction. Mr. Lockard's experience in construction gives him unique insight into some of the economic headwinds facing small businesses across the country. He can also speak with authority about the challenges of wrestling with inflation, supply chain issues, and labor shortages. His perspective will be valuable to the members of this committee. Mr. Lockard, I look forward to your testimony. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Flood, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mentioned this during my introduction of Mr. Lockard, but I'd like to reiterate how pleased I am that I have a witness from my district in Lincoln, Nebraska. Sounds like Mr. Butcher is also from Nebraska. This is a fantastic opportunity for the committee to hear firsthand what people on the front lines of small business and business are hearing, what they're seeing. Your testimony, Mr. Lockard, tells really a troubling story. The construction and commercial real estate sectors have been some of the hardest hit between the shutdowns on COVID-19 and the inflation that has followed. You were talking specifically about supply chain issues, and you were talking about heating, ventilation, air conditioning units. Something that a lot of Americans don't think about every day, but in construction, when those delays happen, that's very real. Can you just really walk us through what is behind the extreme delay in getting these units and affecting the end of a construction project?
Sure. I believe it's a combination of multiple things again. One, construction volume is at high levels right now, so the availability for product is down just due to the demand of these products. Rooftop units are typically custom made for a project. They may have different components in there for humidity control, as well as energy efficiencies. So they're basically built at the time of the order. Some of those parts are coming from overseas and are not available at the factories, as well as labor at the factories. They don't have enough bodies to build for all the orders that are there. The delay to us as a contractor and to our customers as owners is pretty significant. Added cost of what we call general conditions, which is supervision, dumpsters, anything that actually you need to manage the project. The longer it takes, the more those costs increase. And then the lost revenue of not having a tenant in there or having a business not being able to operate is significant.
Thank you, Mr. Lockard. I'd like to pivot for just a second. I am interested in this topic of ESOPs, and I have a question for Mr. Butcher and maybe one of our other witnesses. Have you, Mr. Butcher, experienced a transaction where you're dealing instead of with an ESOP, a limited cooperative association? Have you used one of those before? I know in Nebraska we made this possible in 2008 by passing a law. Do you have any experience with limited cooperative associations?
I don't. I'm familiar actually with the structure, but we haven't executed on it.
Would it be possible that one of these limited cooperative associations would be more cost effective as opposed to setting up the employee stock ownership plan?
I don't know that it would be any different. I mean, I think if you look at and I think the cost piece is, from a contextual thing, is kind of overblown in the sense that if you look at the real cost of putting these transactions in place versus the tax savings and the efficiency of that company and just the retention of employees, particularly today, it far outweighs that initial cost. But I think that it's more, they're different types of structures and they probably apply to different kinds of companies. I see, and I'm not an expert on co-ops, but I generally see them as being on the smaller end of business, whereas ESOPs can scale really big. I mean, there's numerous multi-billion revenue companies out there that are in the ESOP structure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this topic. I think that finding ways to make businesses work, especially in rural America, is important, and it does require some creativity and structure. One of the benefits of cooperatives, and we've seen cooperatives scale very large in ag areas in Nebraska, and one of the benefits I see with the limited cooperative association is you have the ability to bring in that private investment to help affect the buyout and allow the rest of the employees to have the opportunity to enjoy some meaningful ownership and build some wealth. That said, I want to thank Mr. Lockhart for coming from Lincoln, Nebraska today. His testimony about the frontline struggles of where we're at with business and the ability to deliver for customers and ultimately to grow our community is really important. And the fact that he made time to come today is really appreciated. With that, I yield back.